All right, let's jump into the exciting world of fashion today. We're going to be looking at the rise of Indo-Western fashion and how it could really impact Indian clothing manufacturers. It's that kind of cool blend of Indian artistry with Western design, and it's making a splash globally. This deep dive is going to be a fun one.
One thing that really strikes me is how this whole trend fits with what's happening in fashion worldwide. There's this big push for clothes that are unique and let people express themselves. It's like everyone's moving away from the mass-produced stuff and wanting to stand out.
So it's kind of like the perfect moment. You've got this global shift in taste happening,
Yeah.
and then you've got India with its centuries-old traditions and amazingly skilled artisans.
Exactly. And it's not just about throwing a sari on with jeans, right? It's more about weaving these elements from both cultures together to make something new and unexpected. Like imagine traditional Indian embroidery, chikankari, with its delicate white-on-white thread work, but on a modern Western dress. Or maybe some intricate Zardozi work with its gold and silver threads embellishing a Western jacket.
Yeah, so it's those unexpected combos that catch your eye. But then there's the actual techniques themselves. They bring this whole other layer of art and cultural meaning to it.
Absolutely. And it's opening up so many doors for Indian clothing manufacturers,
Yeah.
particularly in places like the US. Research shows that especially Gen Z and millennials are looking for brands with unique stories and cultural backgrounds.
Right, it's not just about how it looks. It's got to have some depth and meaning behind it, too.
Exactly. And when you think about how rich India's textile history is, all those years of expertise in techniques like Kanjivaram, with its vibrant silk saris, or Banarasi, known for its opulent brocades. It's like Indian manufacturers have this treasure trove of stories they can tell through their clothes.
Each piece becomes like a work of art, a real conversation starter, more than just something you wear.
Precisely. Now, another place where Indo-Western fashion is taking off is Europe. It's a region known for loving well-made clothes and attention to detail. And European shoppers tend to value quality and sophistication, which fits in perfectly with the craftsmanship and artistry that's so strong in Indian textile traditions.
Yeah, the details, the colors, the handwork, it all just speaks to European taste.
Imagine those vivid colors and patterns of India set against those classic European buildings. Such a cool blend of aesthetics.
It's like you're seeing a conversation between cultures happening through fashion. So we've got the US and Europe. Where else is this fusion really catching on?
Australia's popping up as another big market. Their lifestyle and weather mean there's a real need for clothes that are stylish but comfy, which is where Indo-Western fashion really nails it. You can just picture those flowy silhouettes and breathable fabrics, decorated with those incredible Indian embroideries, fitting right into the Australian scenery.
It's really interesting how each region has its own preferences, shaping how this trend grows.
Absolutely. And that's something Indian clothing manufacturers need to be aware of as they branch out globally. Knowing the ins and outs of what each region likes and dislikes is key to success.
Okay, so we've talked markets, but let's dig a bit deeper. What's making Indo-Western fashion so popular? Is it a fad, or is there something bigger going on?
I think there are some deeper things at play here. Remember how we talked about this shift toward individuality and self-expression? Well, Indo-Western fashion fits that perfectly. It lets people build their own style story to create a look that shows their unique personality and their love for different cultures.
So it's like saying, I love beauty and art from all over, and I'm going to make it part of my own style.
Exactly. It's about celebrating diversity and ditching the idea that everyone has to look the same. Plus, there's the quality aspect. Indian artisans have spent generations honing their skills, passing down techniques from parent to child. Their attention to detail and dedication creates clothes that are made to last, to be cherished and passed down as heirlooms.
It's like investing in a piece of art, a piece of history, rather than fast fashion.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And all of that, the unique designs, the craftsmanship, the cultural importance, it all comes at a price that makes sense, which is great for shoppers and businesses.
Sounds like a winning formula. But I'm sure bringing this fusion to the world comes with its own challenges.
Oh, for sure. There are definitely some hurdles. One of the biggest is figuring out what consumers in different markets want. Something that flies off the shelves in the US might not do so well in Europe or Australia. It takes a lot of research and a deep understanding of each market's culture.
So it's more than just making a beautiful design. You have to understand how that design will be seen in different cultures.
Exactly. Another challenge is finding that sweet spot, that perfect balance between Indian and Western elements. It's about creating a blend that honors both cultures without watering down either one.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it, finding that harmony?
It is. You want something fresh and exciting that people will love, but you also need to make sure you're respecting the cultural roots of both Indian and Western design.
And I imagine keeping the quality consistent across a global supply chain is another big one.
Absolutely. Holding on to those high standards that Indian craftsmanship is known for is crucial. Consumers need to know they're getting well-made, durable products.
It's about trust and building a reputation for excellence.
Exactly. And that's not all. This is where things get even more interesting. This whole trend is happening while there are other big global shifts going on, creating both opportunities and complexities for Indian clothing manufacturers.
Hmm. Tell me more about these global shifts.
Well, one of the biggest is this rising demand for unique and exotic designs, which is fueled by people wanting to express themselves and moving away from mass production.
So it's about ditching the idea that we should all dress the same and embracing the beauty of different styles.
Exactly. And this plays right into what Indo-Western fashion is all about, with its huge range of unique designs and artistic expressions. Then, there's this growing awareness of sustainable and eco-friendly clothes. People are more and more worried about the environmental and social impact of what they buy.
So it's not just how the clothes look, but how they were made and what values they represent.
Precisely. And this is where India's tradition of using natural fibers and dyes could be a real plus. Think of those gorgeous natural colors from plants and minerals, the use of organic cotton and silk, and those intricate hand-loom weaving techniques that are much gentler on the environment.
It's like mixing modern fashion with ancient wisdom.
Exactly. And let's not forget the elephant in the room, online shopping. It's become huge in retail. The pandemic really sped things up, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down.
So the online marketplace is the new battleground for brands trying to reach a global audience.
Absolutely. Indian clothing manufacturers who can use those platforms well to showcase what makes them unique and connect with customers around the world, they'll have a big advantage. It's about creating a strong online presence that shows off the beauty, artistry, and cultural significance of Indo-Western fashion.
So it's about taking that real-life experience of a bustling Indian market
Yeah.
and bringing it to life online.
Precisely. It's about using technology to bridge the gap between countries and share the beauty of Indian textile traditions with everyone. All of these trends are coming together to create this really interesting landscape, full of opportunities for Indian clothing manufacturers who are ready to embrace this fusion and navigate the challenges that come with it.
Yeah, that's a really important point. There's so much potential with Indo-Western fashion, but it's got to be done respectfully, making sure it's authentic.
Absolutely. Sensitivity and a deep understanding of the cultural nuances are key. We can't just grab a beautiful motif and copy it without thinking about its context and significance. It's about understanding the stories behind those designs, the generations of craftsmanship they represent.
Right. It's more than just the aesthetics. It's about the deeper meaning.
Exactly. Like, imagine using a sacred symbol just because it looks cool, without understanding its religious meaning. That could be seen as really disrespectful. It's crucial to approach these elements with respect and collaborate with Indian artisans and designers. Make sure their voices are heard and their work is valued.
So it's about real partnerships and a true exchange of ideas. Are there any brands doing this well, setting a good example for others?
Definitely. More and more brands are committed to ethical collaborations and responsible sourcing. They're working directly with Indian artisans, paying fair wages, and making sure the profits are shared fairly. These brands are all about transparency and traceability, so consumers know where the materials come from and the stories of the artisans who made them.
That's great to hear. It sounds like there's an opportunity here for economic growth, but also for understanding different cultures better and building bridges between communities.
Absolutely. Fashion can really break down barriers and connect people on a deeper level. When someone in Europe wears something handcrafted in India, something that embodies centuries of tradition, it creates a real link between those two worlds.
It reminds us that we're all connected and that beauty and artistry exist everywhere. Now let's think about our listener for a second. This has all been so insightful, but how does it apply to them? What does this mean for someone interested in fashion, maybe even dreaming of starting their own brand?
This is a really exciting time to be in fashion, especially if you're passionate about global cultures and ethical practices. There's a growing market for unique, well-made clothing that tells a story. Clothing that reflects a deeper connection to craftsmanship and heritage.
So for someone inspired by what we've talked about, what advice would you give them? Where should they start?
I'd say the most important thing is research and education. Really dive into the world of Indian textiles and design. Learn about the weaving techniques, the embroidery styles, the symbolism behind the motifs, and the cultural significance of the colors and patterns. That deep understanding is key to creating authentic and respectful designs.
It's about going beyond the surface, getting to the heart of the craft.
Exactly. As you start designing, think about how you can use those elements in a fresh and innovative way, while still honoring the traditions you're drawing from. Don't be afraid to experiment, to push boundaries, and find new ways to blend Indian and Western elements.
Finding that balance between tradition and innovation.
Precisely. And when it comes to production, I really encourage you to seek out ethical manufacturers and artisans, those who prioritize fair labor practices and sustainability. Maybe even travel to India, if you can, to meet the artisans, learn about their techniques firsthand, and build those personal connections. Those relationships can be so valuable, not just for sourcing great products, but also for gaining a deeper understanding of the culture and the craft.
Building a network based on trust and mutual respect, making sure everyone benefits from this cultural exchange.
Exactly. And one last thing, don't underestimate the power of storytelling. Consumers love brands with a story, a purpose beyond just selling clothes. Share the stories of the artisans you work with, the inspiration behind your designs, and the cultural heritage they represent. Use your platform to educate and promote appreciation for the beauty and craftsmanship of Indian textile traditions.
It's about more than just designing clothes. It's about building a brand that stands for something.
Exactly. It's about creating a brand that shows your passion for cultural exchange, your commitment to ethical practices, and your love for the artistry and heritage of India.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how fashion can reflect cultural trends and even drive positive change.
I'm glad I could share these insights. It's amazing to see how fashion can reflect bigger global shifts, from individuality to the demand for ethically sourced products.
Speaking of global shifts, you mentioned earlier that this fusion is riding a wave of other impactful trends. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest trends right now is sustainability and ethical production. Consumers are really starting to think about the impact of their choices. How those choices affect the environment and the people making their clothes.
So it's not enough for something to look good anymore. It also has to have a story that matches the buyer's values.
Exactly. And that's where India's textile traditions really shine. They've got this long history of working with natural fibers, like organic cotton, silk, and jute. These materials are great because they're biodegradable, renewable, and often produced in ways that are much easier on the environment.
It's like blending the old with the new, using ancient techniques to create clothes that fit with modern values.
Precisely. And it's not just about sustainable materials. There's also this growing appreciation for the actual craftsmanship that goes into making clothes. People are looking for pieces that are made with care, that show off the skills of the artisans who created them.
It's like valuing the human touch, right? The time and effort put into making something truly unique and beautiful.
Absolutely. And this love for craftsmanship fits in perfectly with Indian textile production, where you have things like handloom weaving, intricate embroidery, natural dyeing techniques, all passed down through generations.
It's like each garment holds a piece of that history, a story connecting the wearer to this rich cultural past.
Exactly. And as we move further into this digital age, we can't forget about the rise of online shopping. These platforms have made fashion accessible to everyone, letting people discover unique styles from all corners of the world.
Like having a global marketplace right there on your phone. You can explore the streets of Delhi or the workshops of Jaipur without leaving your house.
Exactly. And for Indian clothing manufacturers, these online platforms are a huge opportunity to reach people worldwide, sharing the beauty of Indo-Western fashion with a global audience.
Harnessing technology to bridge those cultural gaps and create new economic pathways.
Precisely. As these global trends keep evolving, I think we'll see even more amazing things happening with Indo-Western fashion. It's such a dynamic and constantly changing space, filled with potential for creativity, innovation, and cultural exchange.
This whole deep dive has been incredible. I've learned so much about the history, the artistry, and the cultural significance of Indian textiles. I can't wait to see how this fusion continues to impact the world of fashion.
It's been great sharing these insights with you. The world of fashion never stands still, and it's really fascinating to watch how cultural influences, technology, and changing values shape where it goes.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive, but before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We spent this episode exploring Indo-Western fashion, but what other traditional art forms do you think could find similar success on a global scale? Could this be a model for cultural exchange and growth in other creative industries?
Hmm, that's a great question. It really makes you think about the broader potential for cultures to share and learn from each other, and how creativity can break down barriers. Just like Indian textiles are finding a new voice in fashion, there are countless other traditional art forms out there that could capture the world's imagination.
You're right. Think about Japanese ceramics, Mexican textiles, African music. There's so much out there.
Exactly. Every culture has its own unique artistic heritage, filled with stories just waiting to be told in different ways. And as the world becomes more connected, there's this growing desire for experiences that link us to different cultures, broaden our perspectives, and challenge our ways of thinking.
It's about appreciating the beauty of diversity and understanding that inspiration can come from anywhere.
Absolutely. As we move forward, it's so important to approach these cultural exchanges with respect, sensitivity, and a commitment to doing things the right way. These collaborations need to benefit everyone involved, empowering artisans and communities while helping to create a more inclusive and interconnected world.
So, to everyone listening, maybe this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about traditional art, or even inspired you to think about how you can weave your own cultural heritage into your creative work. Remember, there are stories everywhere waiting to be told, connections waiting to be made, and beauty waiting to be discovered.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to introduce the next big fusion, a blend of the old and the new that captures the world's attention.
This journey of cultural exchange is always evolving, and we all have a part to play in shaping its future.